Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, where we can help you learn how to navigate the journey of divorce with less conflict, less debt, and equip you not to just get divorced, but also learn how to be divorced. Your host, certified divorce coach Karen McNenny, shares her wealth of knowledge, gets advice from other relationship experts, and interviews couples who learn how to have a good divorce, so you can too. Now here's your host, Karen.
Thanks for joining me again on the Good Divorce Show. I am your good divorce coach, Karen McNenny, and today we have a niche specialist joining us talking about high net worth divorces. Olivia Summerhill passionately supports affluent women through divorce, providing guidance to clients, financial professionals, mediators, divorce attorneys, private banks, and family offices as they navigate financial challenges. Olivia has been featured in Forbes, U.S. News, MSN, and Yahoo, and her podcast, Divorce for Wealthy Women, and her upcoming book, Penthouse Divorce, offer essential insights. Check those out. As a certified financial planner, psychology of financial planning specialist, and a divorce financial analyst, Olivia illuminates the path to financial independence for affluent women. Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, Olivia Summerhill.
Thanks for having me and reading that very long bio.
I love my listeners to know exactly who we're talking about. And that is the professional side that says you come with the street cred, you know what you're talking about. But
Yes.
More importantly, you are also a child of divorce who has experienced firsthand how money and divorce can get entangled and really create a negative experience for family members. Would you mind unpacking a little bit of your personal story for us?
Absolutely. And I also have had a divorce in my adulthood, but that was just easy as could possibly be. So we'll focus on the childhood.
You learned
Yes,
how to do a good divorce.
Yeah, the right way. So in childhood, my parents, I came from a wealthy family, and my father was the one who controlled the money and all of his side of the family. And my mother was a stay-at-home mom. They both, and I'm not at all going to single out one of them, both of them did a terrible job in handling their divorce process. They involved all four children as pawns. They did all the financial control and greed and fear and all the emotions that go into the money and divorce, did everything wrong. They involved the police. They involved child services. They involved every court thing and motion that could be possibly thrown out. We as children knew about. Their emotions were all over the place and they did not handle it correctly. So,
oh my goodness, that is
short,
such a heartbreak. How old were you when you were going through that?
I was 12, 13, 14, and I blocked it all out. I left home early. I pretended it never happened. I got into finance so no one could control me with money and I could help people save so they never would be controlled by someone else like I saw with my parents, my mom.
Yeah.
And then after about a decade of being in finance and thinking that my childhood was fine, I just will block it out and never talk to them again, I went to therapy and I realized how atrocious and devastating my childhood became because of their divorce and doing it so wrong with the money that I started therapy, got through that, healed as much as you possibly can, because it's always going to be with you. But then I started my own firm so that women in divorce are not doing what my mom did. And I also got collaboratively trained. I'm a mediator. I am a neutral if I want to be in the financial realm with both parties, whoever is getting divorced, so that they can alleviate the stress and the pain with the finances in divorce and lower their emotions so they're not negatively affecting their children like what happened in my childhood.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry you walked through that journey. And thank you for kind of turning lemons to lemonade to help other people who want to protect their children and themselves. Now, one question I have is that, we think about divorce. And if you're high net worth, is it really different or are the numbers just bigger? Like, how do the stakes change? And what can we better understand about when there's business and high assets and family money?
So it gets more complicated the more assets you have, but the emotions of if you have $1,000 or 100 million or even $1 billion in assets, which those are my clientele, is 100 million to billions. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you're going through a divorce, you're going to have those emotions the same way. So if you have $1,000 in the bank and you're stressed out, even though you can't comprehend most of the time, oh, if you have 100 million, you can't be stressed. Like you have plenty of money, you guys can split that. There's still emotions attached because that person who's not in control of the finances still has that fear of being left out on the streets. I have that comment made to me all the time by very wealthy women of he's going to take or she's going to take. In my scenario, I work with the affluent women. So I'm going to use heterosexual relationship. She's the one who's staying at home, not in control of the finances. It can be the other way around, but majority
Sure.
in our society, it's not. And that's who I work with, is the women. So majority of the time she's calling and saying, I am so scared he's going to take everything and I will be on the streets. And that is a valid concern, no matter your wealth standpoint, no matter what your wealth or
Yes.
the family wealth. Who knows? You don't know. That is a valid fear.
And you talk about this, the relationship before the divorce, and traditionally there's one high value, high worth earner. In this case, we'll hand that over to the male gender, and women who were stay at home moms, who were fully supported, who maybe didn't even touch or see the money during the marriage. So what can we learn from the pre-divorce relationship that's going to echo in the divorce experience?
So what we can learn with any relationship value of money, so any level of asset you might be having as a listener, is you really want to know where your accounts are. How much assets do you have? Do you have someone in your life that you haven't actually talked to yet that might be a financial advisor or an accountant or a lawyer that your husband may know that you might have, maybe it's you have put your head in the sand and you're responsible for not wanting to know, or you've trusted your spouse so many years to handle the finances, you haven't had to worry. Any type of knowing or unknowing is no judgment there. We just would like, if from my standpoint of an expert, if you can just understand the finances, you might actually avoid divorce, because once you get comfortable with the money, you know that maybe you could leave and then you might not want to. So
Oh,
getting, yeah, a psychological, I'm in the psychologically standpoint of finances all the time. I'm thinking about the emotions within investing and money. And that's the thing, that if you can gain a little bit of control, a little bit of traction there during your relationship, even if it's on the rocks, if your spouse is willing to communicate and you have enough confidence in the relationship to talk about your fears around money and the anxiety, you might be able to save the marriage if you want to, of course. But I'm all for, I mean, get a marriage counselor who understands money, which is rare. I have resources
right.
if people do understand and are at that point of wanting help, let me know. But if you can understand the finances just a little, that might counteract that fear of leaving. And who knows, at least you know the numbers.
Oh, that's so important. I think the naivete is a lot of times where the fear comes from. And power and control differential. And it's a different era. Have you seen a shift from even, our parents' era, your own parents, where it was just common, women were going to stay at home and be taken care of. And now as women have come into the workforce, what lessons can we bring with us in this new era of more female empowerment?
Unfortunately, I am still seeing, and in all of the different things throughout our history, we're still seeing a shift in the mothers are staying at home. Still, that's the more appropriate in our culture norm.
Hmm.
However, we are still seeing, we're seeing a jump in the educational standpoint of women. So they're getting all the education, they're starting in the workforce, and then they're staying at home for a few years. So that's a shift. Instead of
Right.
you're just going to go right ahead and be a stay-at-home mom, no questions asked.
Hmm.
But it's a choice now. And I do want to point out that even in this millennia where we do have the knowledge that if you stay at home even for a few years, women make 20% or more less. So
Right.
20% to 30% to more less getting back into the workforce. If you're going to do that, that is your choice as a couple. You guys get to make those decisions, but it is still very prevalent that it's the female staying at home. If you're going to, please have the conversations before you start having children on, well, what's the compensation? Because even though right now he is going to absolutely say, oh, thank you so much. And yes, this is the choices we're making, and you're taking care of the children, and that's a full-time job. And statistically, that's about 146,000 you could be making. So your salary should be 146. If you get divorced in 8 years after having the children staying at home, he will not remember that you should be getting that salary, or you did contribute as much as you did in the household. Having those written down, conversations about your worth as a stay-at-home mom or dad, but again, majority of the time it's still women, even in our culture today, talking about it is very important, because you are going to take a sacrifice in finances. Even if you don't get divorced, you're still going to take a sacrifice. So you want to know what your options are.
Oh, I just really appreciate this idea of putting a number to that salary, that worth, the contribution that you've made to the household and the family, and that is talked about before the children arrive. As couples are approaching divorce, and I often talk about, there's usually one person in the couple who's been thinking about it for a long time, packing the psychic parachute, getting ready to leap. During that period of time, and let's just suggest it is these women who, have the fear of leaving, but they want to leave. What are some of the early mistakes that they might make as they're, reaching out to lawyers, or getting more information about the finances? How can they pack that parachute in a way that's going to help when the leap does come?
The best advice that I could give is, when you're in that plane thinking about packing that parachute and jumping, really understanding that any of your friends and family who have been through divorce, or anyone in your family or your friends that know your spouse, they might be more negative, or they might share some really great tips about their own divorce or your soon-to-be ex-spouse potentially, but it might not be very helpful for you to learn these things, and it might put fuel to the fire that might not help you when you're jumping out of the airplane. So having the really third-party, non-emotional expert who can really guide you. I know it's going to cost money having conversations or consultations with professionals. There are a lot of free resources. I have a lot of those. You can reach out, and I know you do too. So anything that you can do, listening to podcasts, reading books, these are all going to give you some knowledge base that is going to be different than friends and family that might just really, again, put fuel to the fire that's not needed, and giving you examples that might actually make and create more fear.
And let's talk a little bit about those professionals in particular. Let's talk a little bit about those professionals, in particular lawyers, and when is the right time to get them involved, what we should be looking for, and really considering our own values and goals and what we want through the divorce process.
I love you mentioned values and goals, because that is the first thing I talk about with any potential client in a consultation. You got to know your own self right now. And that's hard to do, because you might be transitioning into a new identity post-divorce or during the divorce. But knowing who you are, knowing your goals, knowing your values. If you have children, is family the number one value? If it is, that's going to be your guiding post on that road. You need to be able to focus on that. And you're going to want to pick a professional that's the best person for you, that focuses on your values. So what I mean by that is, when you're in the airplane making these decisions, pick the right person who's not going to put the fuel to the fire. So I hear a lot still in our day and age about litigating attorneys and bulldog attorneys, and that is most of the time not going to be your best approach, especially financially. I don't care if you work with me and you have 300 million. You don't need to waste hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars on lawyers that are going to just fight. If you have your values in place, you can be in the airplane and really choose a team that's going to help you the best ways and the fastest, and without spending the most money. And that typically is going to be, and I have a bias here, and maybe you do too, but I appreciate working with collaborative professionals or those who want to think creatively, those who don't want to go to court and help make this a long process so they get more money. I want to pick a professional that's a mediator or someone who can really help both of us. And if you think your soon to be ex will never go that route, there are some tools that you can strategize with professionals on how to approach a simpler divorce with the right professionals rather than both of you getting the bulldogs and fighting because you don't think he or she will ever accept someone who can do the divorce easy. I bet there's a way you can get creative. I have high confidence. I'm very positive that even the most atrocious things that you see on the news, I am asked a lot by reporters about certain divorces that you hear and celebrities. I work with them. They even say those things. And then when I get into the actual, let's say, boardroom and we all are talking or we're on the airplane together, you can actually have a civil conversation if you have the right professionals involved. It doesn't need to be nasty and messy like my childhood, right?
That's right. I couldn't agree more, Olivia. And that's really what we are trying to promote here on the Good Divorce Show. And I think so many people have this default idea in their brain that I have to lawyer up, battle, come out in debt, and be enemies to this person that once there was a love story. And we are here to tell you that is not the only path, listeners. There are many ways in which to approach your divorce with compassion, with rational thinking, with collaborative professionals, that we just have to do this thing. It doesn't have to consume all of your money and all of your time. You're singing right to my heart, Olivia. We are chatting today with Olivia Summerhill. She is a dedicated advocate for affluent women in divorce and advises clients to navigate financial pitfalls. You mentioned resources. You can find those at Summerhill Firm. When we come back from the break, we're going to hear a few more stories from our professional Olivia Summerhill. Stay tuned.
Are you thinking about getting divorced? Before you call a lawyer, call the Good Divorce Coach, Karen McNenny, a certified divorce counselor, co-parenting specialist, and mediator. Karen's signature Good Divorce experience will guide you through your divorce journey from the day you make that difficult decision to the day the decree is signed, all for a predictable fee. The Good Divorce Coach will teach you and your partner how to get divorced and be divorced with less conflict and less debt. Visit thegooddivorcecoach.com to get in touch with Karen.
Now, back to the show with Karen.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Good Divorce Show. I am your Good Divorce Coach, Karen McNenny. Today, we are chatting with Olivia Summerhill. She is a financial expert dedicated as an advocate for affluent women in divorce and advises them and how to better manage their finances through divorce, where to see the blind spots, and on the other side of it. We talk about a very real situation that I run into with my clients and you as well, Olivia, where there might be a woman who has never seen the money, managed the money, even know how much is there, let alone I'm now going to go out into my independent life. How do I do money? What are some things that these women should be thinking about, and what resources can help them, especially high net worth, where they're still going to have money that they want to use to leverage as investments and resources and protect those assets?
So this is a huge topic that we'll try our best to just get into a few key points. The first thing I want to point out is 97% of Americans have money anxiety. And the number one reason for divorce is all around the money and finances.
Oh,
so
wow.
This is a topic that is supposed to be normalized, but is still taboo. So let's just all be okay with understanding we do not have to understand the finances, and we're all normal if we don't, because that is a huge anxiety-ridden topic, especially when you add it to divorce. The money and divorce together, terrifying. I get it. So normalizing this topic is really important. So thank you again, Karen, for having me on to talk about it.
Yes. And this is one of, I just want to point out to our listeners again, you are trained in the psychology of financial planning. And I think people forget about this anxiety, these fears, that it isn't just money, it's all the emotion that comes with it. And that's one of the things that you really help people identify and navigate.
Yes, 85% of your money decisions are made every day around all the emotions. So every decision you make, 85% of the time is going to be around money and the emotions that go into it. So whether it be you're just thinking of getting a new car or divorce, that's all related to money, or even a simple thing of going to the grocery store. You might be having an emotion and you're going to buy something different than you would a different day if you had a different emotion. So we all have emotions and we all have fears around money and different emotions around money. So normalizing it is really helpful. And that's all, yes, psychology of financial planning and behavioral finance. So understanding the emotions that go into money and investing, it's extremely a different topic that a lot of people don't want to think about. And I get it.
Yes. And there's some people who can get really ignited in the divorce process. Have you ever had an occasion where a client has just really surprised you because of how they were emotionally ignited and driven?
So I don't get too excited around different stories that I hear from clients because I've seen a lot. And I work with such high net worth that the cases typically are extreme. So day to day, to me, it's not extreme, but for your listeners, some of my stories would be for normalized conversations day to day. If you're not doing what I do, they all probably would be pretty extreme to hear. One of them in particular, and maybe we'll get into this later, or if you'd like to hear a story right now,
Yeah.
Okay. So the behavior, this could happen to you as well. So I think, this is great for listeners to hear, is when we're thinking of divorce and we have a spouse that maybe cheated on us, the thing that emotionally we might want to all of a sudden counteract and think about and get a therapist or get the right professionals or have support systems around us is, if we have been cheated on, not acting out, because that's what I typically see is trying to get revenge or emotionally going after or throwing in the towel and giving up too soon during the divorce process and just letting it all go because you're so devastated. So all of these emotions come into play. And what I've recently seen in a story, I guess I'll share in a very high level because everything is confidential in my clientele base. A client, soon to be ex-husband, a very, very, very affluent family. He owned a huge company, and at the base of that company was a coffee shop / cafe. And because he was cheating, because he was going to potentially not give her anything, that's right when I got involved. This is the very, very beginning, hearing this story. She had this idea of, well, to destroy him and humiliate him in front of all of his employees, how about I go and work at the cafe? Because that'll show all of his employees that he is not taking care of me. And that is a revenge plot that I asked her, again, we go over values and goals and long term, would your children want to see you do that? And would you feel good about this? Would this actually benefit you in 5 years? Financially, I already knew the answer is no, because he will destroy her. He will win. And just going through these open-ended questions, I wanted to share the story because it'll normalize, if you're thinking these thoughts, totally normal, no matter what wealth level you have, but is it going to be the best? That revenge plot, we were able to work through it very quickly. It didn't have to be that way. And the divorce can be very smooth, but those revenge plots are normal to think about, but are they the best? Emotionally, in the middle of divorce, beginning of divorce, someone's cheating on you, really think through and get the right people involved to help you, because you're probably not going to be thinking clearly. And that's the psychology of money as well, we can go into. But overall, that's just a little instance of a story that hopefully normalizes divorce a little bit.
Well, and this idea and these revenge plots, and when you are hurting, you want to hurt the other person. And I often, as I talk my clients down from that place as well, in that situation, going and working at the cafe is like you taking the poison and hoping he dies. You really are only hurting yourself. Don't let them have that power over you. Will it be value added? And typically right? Does it matter in 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? And that is a reminder to all of you listeners, there is no healing elixir greater than time, and nothing else can replace it. So you just have to ride the wave of grief and anger and sadness and excitement. Like it's like being a ping pong in a shoebox. You're going to be all over the place, but know that those intense early feelings, they're temporary. They're not permanent, and it will shift. And keeping that in mind when you're making those high emotional decisions will help protect your future.
Yes. And then you're not jumping out of an airplane without a parachute.
Amen to that. Yes. So there are many clients out there, and I run into this, who suddenly are like, great, I've got my assets. I've got half of the retirement. I'm keeping the house. I've had this payoff. I'm getting, maybe some spousal support, depending on your state where you're at. And now they have to figure out what to do with all of this money. Whereas the team that maybe was helping manage the family, you don't want to work with them anymore. Maybe you don't have trust, or they're staying with the business and your former spouse. So what are some really tactical, practical things that we should be thinking about as we move into our own autonomous financial life?
The number one thing is know that it's totally normal to put your head in the sand post-divorce and be paralyzed and not want to actually manage anything or
That's
follow
right.
anyone.
Yeah.
That is absolutely normal to be bewildered, terrified, scared, maybe embarrassed because you went through this divorce and you were nodding your head. Yes, I understand, because you didn't want to look dumb or stupid. And that's what I hear a lot of. And if you're not a rocket scientist and you're in the rocket and you're just shaking your head, yes, like you can say, I don't know, but you're going to look stupid no matter if you don't know the area of expertise. That's completely normal to not know. So maybe that example wasn't the best, but if I'm not a rocket scientist, I want to be able to say, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. But in money, people feel scared to do that because they feel everyone should know the answers. So they shake their head, yes, in divorce. Okay, yes, lawyer, I get what I'm getting financially, but then really inside you don't. And it's just a taboo topic that we don't talk about. So post-divorce, maybe you still don't know anything, and that's okay. If you want some tactical advice here, the number one thing I can really recommend is first getting to know how much do you actually spend. Most relationships spend more than they actually make. So if you're now getting spousal support, or you now have a retirement account and then a cash account from the divorce, and then you have the house, how much are you actually spending on the expenses of the house? I would love to see this all done during the divorce process. And that's what I help women with during divorce, because maybe this wasn't the best decision, but post-divorce, if you've already made the decisions and you have it all ready to go, understanding your weekly and monthly expenses. So writing it down physically, old school, go old school, get to know yourself and what you're spending on that card. And once you have that, I also recommend Mint.com. This is an app on your phone.
Mint.
Yes, I was going to say, put it in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
It is a free tool. You can put in all of your spending after you did the handwritten, because psychologically you remember things and you do more at the beginning written. It's better for you than putting it into the app. But once you get into this application, it will expense and put everything there for you and tell you how much you're spending, and you can categorize it, and it'll show you pretty pie charts of what you can spend, and it'll also tell you what bills are coming up from what accounts. So you can at least start to manage for free if you can't afford a financial planner. If you can afford someone, right away post-divorce, interview at least a few people in the financial field, and that's different than an accountant. So you want to actually get someone who understands your situation and who is listening to you. And also, I have this bias where a lot of financial advisors are scary and they might try to sell you something. Look for a certified financial planner or someone in your area or online that really has a fiduciary standard. I know these are scary terms, but CFP or fiduciary or financial planner, those are the people who are going to just help you get from your basis of understanding your expenses and creating a longer plan of how is it going to look for you to get through the next few years and retire, and what are your goals and what do you want to spend on, and how are your kids doing with their finances and education planning. Getting yourself in order with the right professional that you trust, and then also just understanding your basic finances. If you can do that on your own, awesome, or hire someone if you can afford it. Those are my best tools. The last little thing that maybe you already did in the divorce process, if you haven't, checking your credit score. Annualcreditreport.com. We'll put it in the show notes. The free, once a year you can check. You want to make sure that your ex is not on any of your joint assets. You don't want anything joint anymore on your debt. You want to also make sure there's no mistakes on those credit bureaus. So annualcreditreport.com will show you your 3 scores and all your reports of all your addresses and phone numbers. We want to make sure everything is up to date because we don't want you not to be able to get credit. So if you have a 6-year-old child, you're about to have twins with your new spouse years down the road, you want to make sure that you had checked your credit when you first got divorced from your first ex, so that you don't all of a sudden have this big fiasco of you didn't make a payment because he or she was still on your car loan, and now you have the twins coming and you have to get a minivan and you can't get it because your credit is destroyed because you didn't make payments you didn't even know about. So this website will help you look at these 3 scores of Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, big stupid bureaus that we don't need to go into on what they do, but they monitor your credit. That's about it. And just make sure there's no mistakes, that you know your scores and everything on there is clean and you're not attached to your ex.
Such great advice coming to us today from Olivia Summerhill. Olivia is not only well-spoken, but she is a certified financial planner, psychology of financial planning specialist, divorce financial analyst, and is here to help women, in particular in high net worth situations, move through the divorce process and make sure that they're financially sound on the other side. You can learn more about Olivia and her work at summerhillfirm.com. We'll make sure things are in the show notes. Anything else you want to just add, words of wisdom and reassurance to our listeners as we sign off today?
I think that when we talk about money and divorce, the more simplified we can make it, the better. So we talked about a lot today. Know that if this all went over your head and you need to listen 2 more times, do it. That's okay. It's normal to feel overwhelmed when it comes to money and divorce. If you're scared of getting divorced because you don't know about your financial situation, you're not alone. Getting the right people involved will help. But listening to shows like Karen's is going to also really give you a strong guidance. So continue doing what you're doing.
And you can also hear Olivia's podcast, Divorce for Wealthy Women, and you have an upcoming book, Penthouse Divorce. Anything you want to say about that and what we can be looking for in timeline?
So that's going to come out early next year, but it is
2024. We're an evergreen podcast, so
yes, 2024. And it's money coaching because I'm also a certified money coach. And so it goes into divorce, money coaching for yourself, and understanding your own patterns and behaviors around money, so that when you get divorced this time, you're not making the same mistakes in your next relationship, and you're really understanding and empowering yourself around money now. So all about divorce and money, and that'll be coming out next year, 2024.
Wonderful. Thank you, Olivia Summerhill. I'm your good divorce coach, Karen McNenny, and reminding you listeners, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Thanks for listening. Do you have questions or thoughts about this week's episode? Let us know by following the Good Divorce Coach on Facebook and Instagram at Good Divorce Coach, and leave a comment. And be sure to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific, or listen anytime wherever you get your podcasts.